Hi Francis, thanks for joining us today. It's great to talk to you.
Fantastic.
I'd like to briefly introduce you, but I know you're somebody that doesn't like labels. So if I just run through some of your achievements or accomplishments to date for people that are perhaps not aware of your work. You first came to prominence with It Bites, British band in the 1980s, and then after the band split, you moved to LA, where you settled for a while, and I guess it's fair to say you went on a bit of a bender for a while.
I was living up to my northern roots, Dave. I was doing my drinking. You're supposed to do that. That's the label they give you in northern England. You have to drink yourself to death.
Indeed. You successfully cleaned up from that and went sober, and you've released quite a few solo albums now. And aside from the music, you also have studied, I believe, with the actual horse whisperer, horse training. You've studied psychology, astrology, and set up your own record label. You've also worked as a guitarist, session musician for people like Lauryn Hill, Ian Brown, Robert Plant you played with, Santana. That's quite a journey you've been on.
Well, it's amazing what you can do, if you don't put yourself in a category, if you just let life take you by the hand and put you in various places. It's when we limit ourselves all the time by giving ourselves definitions. I'm a guitar player, I'm a this, I'm a that, and we're none of those things. They're just things we do. If you be open to life, it's pretty amazing what can come in.
Yeah. Do you think that, especially, do you ever look back and think, how did I get here, especially when you consider, where you come from to where you are now?
I just think, I've always been trying to find out who I was, because that question always rang through my head. Even, it's difficult when you're, dressed in leather pants running across the stage, shouting, "We're going to kick ass tonight." That's what you're supposed to do in rock and roll, But it's very difficult when you have the questions I had in my mind about life, about why I'm here and all that stuff. Most people don't want to deal with that stuff, but it was interesting for me to do it. Mm-hmm. So when I look back at the journey of my life, it's really a journey of trying to find myself, really. I think that's I think that's what the common denominator is. I was always trying to, there always seemed to be something that was elusive, that escaped me, that I couldn't quite grasp, and I was always trying to find it.
When you look back at sort of your early childhood, especially, I'm guessing that the area that you're from, which is Egremont in Cumbria, similar to the place where I grew up, which is very industrial working class. And when you see people famous or on TV or who are achievers, you're always because of the class system there, you're always told, oh, that doesn't happen to people like us. They're privileged, or it's who they know, etc. So you have a lot of obstacles, and it seems to me that throughout your life you've definitely been one who's overcome obstacles or hurdles to achieve some great things.
I think always the obstacle is your own mind.
Yeah.
We certainly, both you and I grew up in a class system that I think is pretty. I think the class system's a devastating thing. I think it's a horrendous thing to be told from an early age that you're not as good as somebody else, or I find that really offensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That somebody else's life is more valid than mine and stuff like that, or that mine is more valid than theirs. That whole thing about you should look up to them, and I find it dreadfully sad that that my children would be lesser children than the Queen, or lesser children than Lord Ponsonby, or I just find that deeply offensive when we're animated by the same thing. The Queen, really the Queen, it's just the role she plays in life. She's just a human like me.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm not a guitar player, I'm just a guy. And she's not the Queen. The Pope isn't the Pope. He just dresses up in Pope's clothes and pretends he's the Pope. It's all just pretense. And so, we pretend we're things.
Yeah.
In life, that's all we do. We pretend, and we take on the role as a rock star, or we take on the role as the Pope, and we take on the role as the Queen, or a policeman, or a doctor, and all these things are just roles, much like Mickey Mouse is Mickey Mouse, and when you go to Disneyland, you see Mickey Mouse, but it's not Mickey Mouse. It's there's somebody inside that costume, and so I'm more interested in what's inside the costume.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's much like the film The Matrix. You know, you see that film The Matrix where there's like a reality where, and then there's another reality, and I'm more interested in what's behind the Matrix.
Yeah, and just shedding the labels and get to what's at the core.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What inspired you to study psychology originally? Just because you were always interested in what makes you tick and what life was about, etc. Because it is a bit. I can't think of many people that have been successful rock stars that have then gone on to study for, say, astrology or psychology.
Yeah. Well, I there's an old Indian word called Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
It's spelled Dharma, and it means an act of truth. So when a fly buzzes, it commits an act of truth. When a lion roars, it commits an act of truth. Or when a bird flies, it commits an act of truth. It's just what it is. It's its nature. Mm-hmm. And I think that in certain terms, studying those things is part of my dharma. It's that which I must do. I feel it in my veins. Like I would do it whether you paid me for it, whether I was on a desert island, it doesn't matter where I was at, or I would always be interested in that. So I would have to make to conclude that I feel it's part of my nature. It's not something I chose. It's part of the energy that I am, and so I didn't really make a choice. It was just always there. I was always interested in philosophy and psychology and religions and just human nature. Really, I mean, I find it fascinating. I think you get into the psych. Getting into the unconscious side of life is absolutely fascinating. Which I study Jungian psychology. The great psychologist Carl Jung.
Yeah.
I study his work more than anything, I think, and he was an astrologer. That's how I ended up getting into astrology, because, like most people, I just thought it was a load of crap. Mm-hmm. And to be quite frankly, the stuff you see in magazines, that is a load of crap. It's not. I mean, astrology.
Very general. Yeah.
Like listen to the Spice Girls and say you know about music.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a magazine and go, "Oh, I know about astrology." It's like it's I mean, some of the greatest minds in the world. In fact, most things come from the cosmos. There's not. You have to be an astrologer, be a doctor at one point. There's a lot of stuff goes on with it, and it doesn't. I'm not here to convince people astrology. I don't care what they believe, but like once you start to get into that system, it's you start to get into the undercurrent and the underbelly of life. It's absolutely fascinating. Mm-hmm. Really going on, like what's really behind the matrix. I'm fascinated by it.
It sounds like an endless search, and that there's so much exploration to do there, so much learning there.
Well, I think it's true to say that when the question is always the priority, because I remember somebody said to Stephen Hawking, the great astrophysicist, they said, "Isn't it going to be sad that when you die, you won't have the answers to all the questions you had?" And he said, "Wouldn't it be sad if I did?"
Yeah, that's a good point.
The great question of life, the great finding who's inside the Mickey Mouse costume. That's the real question. Who is that? What are we doing here? Mm-hmm. And who is that inside? Who am I really? I know the role I'm playing. I'm a rock star, but I was never a rock star. It was just something I did. I played a role.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what I did. I'm not an astrologer. I'm not a guitar player. I'm not a singer. They're just things that I do. I mean, what I am is probably nameless.
Yeah.
And but that's
just activities.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, can I take you back now to your childhood? What was your childhood like growing up in Egremont, Cumbria?
I think my family life was a mixture. It was a cross between paradise and hell, because my parents were like binge drinkers, so they would drink alcohol a lot. And so when they weren't drinking, they were the greatest people on the planet. Absolutely amazing. And my house was like, all my friends used to come round to the house because it was a cool place to hang out. But when they drank, it was dreadful. It was like they'd go drinking for like 2 weeks and nearly die. They were that. And then they would just stop drinking again for like 3 months, and it was like, and then it went back to paradise.
So was music your escape from that?
I don't know whether it's an escape. I don't know. I mean, my brother did music, so my brother played guitar for Ozzy Osbourne when he first left Black Sabbath, and so I grew up with with like Ozzy Osbourne on my couch. I just had all sorts of like weird things going on in my life.
Yeah. You left Cumbria to move to London after you were playing in club bands, and then you formed at Bites. What was it that got you? How did you go about getting signed to a major label with It Bites?
Well, we were squatting in Peckham, which is basically illegally occupying a building in Peckham, London. And we used to send our demos off every week to record companies, and nobody responded. So we just went in there one day and, attacked the record companies. And some guy, said, "Let me listen to your cassette." And he heard the cassette. It was just a typical story, really. And then all of a sudden we were signed by Virgin Records, and then we were on the telly, and then the whole thing. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I had my leather pants on and my long blonde hair, and I looked like a hot chick, and I was, and I was doing my thing. I did it well, Dave. I did it well.
Yeah, you did it very well. Successful, and I mean, some of those songs you're still performing today. You're still like that period of your career.
Yeah,
great. So, after the band split, you moved to LA. Were you actually living in Hollywood? Whereabouts in LA were you living, and what sort of lifestyle were you living then after the band split?
Well, I met this girl in London. She was from Los Angeles, and turned out to be my wife. After a while, and we're not together now, but back then. And I went, following her to Los Angeles, and I was very naive. I didn't actually know that I come from a poor family until I met her. Because once I got to LA, and I lived in a place called Laurel Canyon, which is just off Sunset Boulevard, and I lived at that first light at La Cienega. If you start going up the canyon, the first light, I think, is at Mount, I can't remember what they call it. I don't know, it's before you start to rise up the canyon anyway. And I go and do that whole thing. I've got palm trees in my garden, and I'm doing the LA thing, and I'm playing that role. And I got eaten alive in Los Angeles. I wasn't equipped psychologically to deal with it, and I ended up on my knees, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you got to a point where, what was that point where you decided, this was no longer the life for you? And what did you do about it?
I did one night when I used to party a lot then, and I was out there, when English bands would come into town, we'd go and hang out, and I think I was hanging out with Motorhead that night, and we were doing a party. It was actually, you know what it was? It was Motorhead's album launch. I think they were launching it in there. I'd known Lemmy for a while anyway, and Phil Campbell, the guitar player, I'd known for a while, and we used to party around at my house and stuff like that, and we'd get wasted. And some guy put a gun on my head on Hollywood Boulevard. I used to put a bottle of wine in a McDonald's cup and put a straw in it and go cruising up and down the Hollywood Boulevard and just drink and smoke pot and all sorts of other stuff and acid and all that stuff. It was a lot of fun. I had a great lot of time, and then once it starts to turn the other way, it starts getting sad. Mm-hmm. And I got a gun put on my head, and I woke up the next day and I just thought, dude, I'm done. That's it. I'm finished. Mm-hmm. That's it. And I haven't drank since.
Wow. Was it a tough process to clean up and change? I mean, did you have to lose all the friends that you were hanging out with? And
not at all. I just made a decision. Same as like when I stopped smoking cigarettes. Mm-hmm. I just said, that's it, I'm doing it. It's not tough, it's just a decision. I mean, you can drag your story along with you and say, well, bro, it's tough and that. But the truth is, if you want something, you just, you can either bullshit yourself or just get on with it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's just like I didn't want to end up like I didn't want to go through those cycles like my mum and dad were going through, and that was the first time I realised I was turning into them, and I just thought, I don't want to do it. And every single negative thing that ever happened to me in my life was always done through alcohol or smoking pot or acid. And I've got nothing against people smoking, drinking, and doing what they want. So I'm not trying to tell people to stop. I don't mean it like that. But just for me personally, so I mean, it isn't like I hadn't done it. I mean, I had 20 years. I'd been drinking since I was about 9.
Yeah.
So it isn't like I didn't do it. So I had a good run. I drank myself into a stupor, and then that was it. Same as cigarettes. If you want, you get to 35 years old, you should stop because your body can't deal with it after that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So after that phase, you Is that when you started studying psychology at that point?
I think I started studying like actively at that point, but I'd always been interested in it all my life. I mean, it probably came via religion in my early days. Even with It Bites, we had songs like "You'll Never Go to Heaven."
Mm-hmm.
There was, being brought up in Catholic school, there was always an interest in that stuff anyway because they ran it down your neck. But I mean, it was. I actively pursued it at that point. I became interested in what my life was about.
Yeah. Your solo albums after that were very, very different from the It Bites material, and also different from Welcome to the Wild Country, which was very, guitar driven and sort of hard rock. After that phase, your music was more acoustic and more storytelling, I would say.
I think Welcome to the Wild Country was like leftover It Bites remnants. It was a hard rock thing, and I was being encouraged by everybody around me, like, dude, you gotta rock, and like, oh, but like I've always had the heart of a I mean, I can do that whole thing of like that rock thing, but I've always been far more delicate than that. I mean, I think my music is far more it's just far more sensitive than that. Even though my exterior, on the face of things, I'm a pretty intimidating character sometimes, but really my heart is not like that. I'm quite gentle in that respect musically, and I find that magic world not in rock. Rock is a very masculine thing, and there's more of a feminine energy on the acoustic music. Mm-hmm. It's much more melodic and much more pretty and it has more depth to it.
When you find that you're recording your material, is it easy to say that a song is now finished? Because from experience, you write something, you always want to add something or make it a bit better, and you want it to be perfect. But when do you know that it's right? Okay, that's it. I'm not going to do any more to it.
A song will tell you when it's right. I mean, oftentimes, I record things from my early days because they're not right. They weren't done right. In fact, right now, I'm recording the entire Let's Go Do What Happens CD. It was myself and Dory Jackson were in my studio recording it right now because I liked it. I don't mean it. Just because it's not right doesn't mean to say it's wrong. That's what I'm trying to say. So the album versions I like a lot, but I feel there's things that were missed on the original versions that it's not so much a change of it's not so much changing the song itself, it's changing the instrumentation to start to acoustic and making the melodies shine out more. So that's what that's what we're doing. But a song when it's finished will tell you. It will very clearly tell you. It's if you listen to something like Chucky's in Love by Ricky Lee Jones, there's nothing you can do to that song to make it better. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so when you get a song like that by yourself, like on my last album, Made in Space, I think nearly every single song on that record is finished. I don't think there's anything you can do to make them better. Mm-hmm. I think the melodies speak. I think there's certain tracks on the Gully Flats Boys. I just don't think there's anything you can do to make them better.
Has your style of writing or the method of your writing changed? Did you still go in with the same approach?
I think the frame that I put my songs in changes, but I think there's an essence in all of my songs, which is the inherent character of which I am. And you can hear that throughout my entire career, even though I might have done one with heavy guitar, one's R&B record, one is, like a alternate record, one's with a drum box, one's got no drums on at all. But you can hear the essence of who I am in almost all of those songs. You can hear my noise on the planet. Yeah.
I'd just like to talk now about what you've been doing recently, and you work with Dave Kirshner from Sonic Reality. As a result of that, you ended up playing on Steve Hackett's latest album, Genesis Revisited. That must have been like a boyhood dream come true.
Oh, with Steve, it was fantastic. I love old Steve. It was fantastic, man. When I was a kid, I grew up listening to his music. There probably hasn't been a day on this earth when I haven't heard his music, either just humming it in my head or actually playing it, because, that was my childhood, listening to them early Genesis records from 1970. I think I was like 8 or 9 years old when I first heard Genesis. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking back then, I heard a song called A Musical Box. I remember thinking, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
I just never heard anything like that. I'm thinking, what on earth is that? It was like, and it had like a weird vibe to it. It was like, it was English. It was just a weird thing. And so when Steve asked me to sing on that record, I was, over the moon. I thought it was fantastic. And he come and played at our charity event this year as well. We do a charity event every October in England, and he come and played on it. He was kind enough to fly in from Berlin and come and hang out with us for a day or two. And he's the nicest man you can ever meet. So God bless Steve Hackett. What an amazing thing on the earth he is. Wonderful man.
And superb guitarist.
He's just amazing, absolutely amazing. And he's done, some of all them heavy metal guys and all that tapping they do. Steve started that off.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, the way I got into Genesis was, I don't know, at your school, did kids used to have haversacks with album covers painted on the back?
Yeah.
So somebody came, and I think it was, at the time, it was Trick of the Tail.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've got to find out who this band is. And I started listening, and that was, my first, experience.
Well, Phil, see, you're late to the show. Like, that's real. That's like, I mean, which Trick of the Tail was a good record, but really Phil Collins was trying to do Gabriel when he was, Phil is like a pub singer, he's like a karaoke, not a karaoke guy, but he's more like a Motown guy, like a guy you'll find in a pub having a pint. He's not really the secret kind of wonderworld that Peter Gabriel visits. So Phil was singing all those mythological creatures like the squonk and stuff. That wasn't really true to his nature.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was, and even on Wind and Wuthering, when they were singing All in a Mouse's Night and making up all these little stories, that was still the remnants of Peter Gabriel. It was only after that they began, when Phil began to sing about personal stuff, that's when he really started to do Phil Collins.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, is it true that did you actually audition for Genesis when Phil Collins left?
Yeah, but I couldn't sing Phil's songs. I could only sing Peter's songs, so I couldn't. That was never my job. But it was good to go and it was just fun to go and do. I mean, it was amazing sitting in a booth singing in the Cage and Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks and all them guys. That was fantastic. But to be honest with you, Dave, I couldn't cut. I couldn't cut it. I couldn't cut the Phil Collins songs. I wasn't. I wasn't good enough to do it.
Well, I think once they started veering away from the Peter Gabriel sort of style, that's when I guess my interest had started fading a bit. I mean, those years when it was like Invisible Touch, and that was it just seemed a million miles away from what they had been doing,
But that's more Phil Collins. That's that more We Can't Dance and all those sort of things. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the last Genesis album you got, things like Turn It On Again, a few of them songs were pretty good, and but after that it started, it was. And I think once Hackett left as well, I think there was something dreadfully missing about Genesis once Steve Hackett left.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't just the guitar playing, but it was all those, I don't know, he just had a great way of using effects and sort of sonic landscapes.
He just added a different colour in there that they needed, because without that colour they were pretty bog standard. Mike Rutherford's songs, it's kind of like, Mike's like a nice guy, writes songs for like, he's just like a nice guy. There was no risk in his songs. So when you've got somebody like Steve Hackett, who's an Aquarian who wanted to put some revolution into the songs, it was always going to be interesting, to have a different colour in amongst those songs.
Yeah. Do I understand that you also recording stuff with Dave Kirsten of a sort of soundtrack for Lamb Lies Down on Broadway?
Yeah, Dave asked me to sing In the Cage, and then when I sang In the Cage, he asked me to sing another, and then I sang, and he kept on, because I can do Peter Gabriel real well. I understand. It's not. I don't sound like Peter Gabriel, my voice, but I phrase like him. My phrasing is the same because I've grown up listening to him, and so a lot of my phrasing is, and I can phrase those early Genesis records perfectly, and that's what it is about those early Genesis records. That's why Americans can't sing Genesis, because they phrase in an American way, and it's wrong. It doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't mean they can't sing it. I just mean that, like, in order to deliver those Genesis records, there's a certain way to sing them.
Yeah.
It becomes authentic and not offensive to the early Genesis fans.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It's the way certain phrases are accentuated or pronounced, etc.
There's just a way. There's just a way to deliver that stuff. That if you don't deliver it like that, it's the people who would really listen to it. There were people who appreciate that stuff. The early Genesis fans. It becomes offensive to them, and there's no point for them to listen to it.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to do a song like that, you either make it interesting enough. I think what I do to the Genesis records, I think I put a little bit of Paul McCartney in them. It comes to like that whole kind of pop sensibility that Paul McCartney has. I think that was my contribution to the project of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, because the melodies were incredible.
Yeah,
they were absolutely amazing. And I think maybe I could, if I could make a contribution at all, it would be that I could accentuate how beautiful the melodies were on all those songs. That sometimes it wasn't like the melodies got lost. It's just you had to be a big fan to get to them. But I think what I've done, I've made them a little bit more accessible for your average person to listen to them to and going like, oh, cool, yeah.
Is that just going to be an album project, or are there any plans to tour that? Do you know?
No, he sends me the tracks, and Dave, I don't know what it's got nothing to do with me. I'm just singing on it.
Mm-hmm. So, for people that aren't familiar with what you're doing now, can you do a lot of house concerts? Can you explain the concept of that, how it all works, and what you get from it, what the audience gets from it?
Well, I think I've never been a Freddie Mercury type guy, so I can't. I've never been one. I tried that whole kind of rock thing, playing in front of like 4,000 people, or even with Robert Plant when we were doing like 250,000 people, and I'm better suited to intimacy than I am to masses. Mm-hmm. And so the house concert thing was something I did just because I was so bored with music that I just thought I wanted to, and I had these stories inside of my system that I wanted to tell, and so I just put this thing on my website with anybody like a house concert, and we got like 3,000 requests in like 2 weeks. So I thought, Jesus,
that's going to keep you busy.
For the last 8 years, that's what I've done. We've done like 150 shows a year for the last 8 years, and it's absolutely insane. We've been like England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, France, Belgium, Holland, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, Norway, New Zealand, Australia, Connecticut, and all up and down the east coast of America, all throughout the Midwest, Los Angeles, and everywhere, Canada and Vancouver, Quebec, Montreal, Toronto, absolutely everywhere. Norway and Sweden, Denmark. We've done that for 8 years, and it's been absolutely incredible. I mean, I've met the most amazing people. Just 35 people a night in the house. You just get locked down. It's almost like it's a very. I wouldn't call it spiritual, because when it's not really spiritual, it's more. It's more insightful, I think. People just come and listen to the stories, and we sing songs, and we share an evening. We share energy. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I think, I've seen you many times, and going to see you perform is not just about going to hear some songs. It's about it being, connected to you. It's in a way, it's like hearing somebody reading from their autobiography. You get life stories, you get humor, you get some psychology and astrology thrown in, you get some great songs. It's a whole intimate, evening of entertainment.
A lot of swearing, Dave.
Yes.
There's a lot of swearing. It's like church with swearing.
Yeah, keep the miners locked up.
Yeah.
So do you you just go there with your acoustic guitar and sing?
I've just the people have just been very kind to invite us to their homes, and it's just I've just took the risk in being who I am rather than I just feel very fortunate that it turned out this way, because it could have been very different, I suppose, but I took the risk to go look for the Holy Grail, and I wouldn't say I found it, but I definitely feel like I'm on the track. I feel like I'm getting closer. I'm doing my own thing in the way I want to do it, and I'm being as authentic as I can with my life. And it's not. This isn't everybody's cup of tea. I'm not trying to be a voice box for doing this. I mean, I can't tell everybody what to do. It's not my job, but I just for my own life, it's been very interesting so far.
Mm-hmm. And it's fulfilling for the audience because they get that connection which you wouldn't get, as you say, in a sort of a big arena or stadium or big concert hall.
I think if you're looking for the music industry and you're looking for the ego world, I'm definitely not your boy. You shouldn't come and see me because I'm not that. I definitely am not the rock star guy. I don't do any of that. I'm not trying to pretend I'm anything other than I am. I'm just doing my thing. I'm not dressing up. I don't wear fancy clothes. I don't, I haven't got leather pants on or whatever they wear nowadays. I'm just like some big fat bloke with a bald head and a bit of a bad attitude. But if you like people with fat blokes with bald heads and a bad attitude, I'm definitely your boy.
That can be very entertaining.
Yeah, certainly can.
So you said you're currently re-recording Let's Go Do What Happens with Dory.
Yeah.
What do you have next in the pipeline? Do you know yet, or do you just wait till that's over and then decide what you want to do?
Well, I've definitely got a new album inside of me right now. I can feel it coming. But I work at a cancer clinic in New York City as an astrologer. So I probably 2013 or probably that will take a lot of my time next year, and I'm going to develop I have a new business coming called I Believe I Can Change My World.com, which I'll have up probably in the springtime, and it's it's almost like an online clinic, but my work helping other people is probably more starting to take over my life, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I like doing.
And yeah, it's interesting. The lyrics in one of your songs says the only thing you get to keep is what you give away. Can you expand on that?
Well, all things must pass. I mean, everything's temporary, isn't it? I mean, things come and go all the time in life. There's no point. Oh, this is my BMW, and it just. But if you help somebody, I mean, nobody can take that from you. Like, I mean, that's. Mm-hmm. You do get to keep. In the world we live in, it's quite. We live in a world of duality where if you commit a yin, the yang shows up. You can't help it. It's just physics. Not because you're a good person or wrong, but like if you go rip somebody off, not because you're bad or just because of physics. It's like you can expect to be ripped off because you commit the yin and you rip somebody off. The yang has to show up. It has to at some point. If it's the same thing, if you go and give somebody and help somebody, then it has to show up and you have to get help. It's just the way of the world. I mean, I don't know about God. I mean, I'm probably a staunch atheist, if anything. But I don't mean for good reasons. I just mean to I'd like to be productive. I'd like to take my part in amongst all the molecules that we are. That we're all connected together. So it's pointless trying to pretend we're not, because we are. So I'd like to do my duty and do my bit for all the molecules that and help your molecules, Dave. And when I do that, I feel better. So it's a selfish thing, really. I do it because it makes me feel good.
And is that the website you're talking about? I believe I Can Change My World. Is that connected with that?
I'm probably going to start to separate my astrology and my music. I'll probably put, I'm going to do my. There's a whole bunch of things I'm going to. You'll see. I don't know when it's going to go up. I'm going to be as soon as Mercury goes direct. Right now, Mercury's retrograde, and it goes direct in 2 days. And when Mercury's retrograde, you shouldn't start anything, or it's just a bit of a weird time. So in 2 days' time, I'll start working on the new website.
Mm-hmm. So at the moment you're doing house concerts, and just like to plug the gig you're doing at Steamers Jazz Club and Cafe in Fullerton on the 28th.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. You're performing with Dory Jackson there.
Yeah.
That's great. Looking forward to seeing you.
I don't know if anybody will show up. We don't know. I haven't played in LA for I don't know how long now. It's been a long, long time. So. But it doesn't matter really, because we're gonna have a great night. I know 2 of my friends are coming, so I've got at least 2 people in the audience. That'll be fantastic. I'm used to doing it anyway with house concerts, so it doesn't really matter.
I'm sure you'll get more there than that.
Maybe, but if there's 2 people coming, just give them a plug on the radio.
All right, well, thanks for chatting, Francis. It's a real pleasure talking to you, and all the very best to you. Look forward to seeing you on the 28th. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.